So I've got all these tanks, some pretty cool fish in them, but we can't see crap. Where's the damn light switch? What's up guys, my name's Mike, this is All Things Fish, and thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time to spend a moment with me and maybe learn a thing or two, or at least, fumble around the fish room a little bit and see what we can make happen. I've been trying to push out some new content lately, so let me know in the comments below if you've enjoyed what I've been making. Do you want me to do something different? Do you feel like it's just a useless waste of your time? Do you wish it would be more educational, potentially more entertaining? Use the comments down below to let me know how you feel about it, and we'll change things up to hopefully produce some better content that you guys may enjoy a little bit more. Now, in the most recent videos, we picked up some pretty cool new fish from a couple buddies that I met up with down in Omaha. I'll post the tag for those up there so you can click on that and go check it out if you haven't already. Now, I got those fish settled into the tanks, but there's one problem, just like that tank right there. There's no lights. It's tough to see some pretty awesome new fish without any lights. So what we're gonna do today is show you a cheap budget option to light your tanks. Now, I'm not looking for any highlighting. These aren't gonna be super fancy planted tanks. They're active working breeding tanks. So I don't need a ton just to see the fish and kind of give them a little more, natural environment with a day-night cycle. So I did a little online shopping, whether that's a good idea or not, sometimes it can be debatable, and we picked up some light bulbs. So let's take a look and see what we're going to do today. So these are, it's an 8-pack. The brand is Kihung, which is off of Amazon. Usually I stay away from Amazon when I can. But for the purpose of what I'm doing, something cheap will work just fine. And I've actually used these same lights on those little acrylics behind me. So you've seen these lights before. Now, those are the 2-foot version. These are the 4-foot version. So I got an 8-pack of these for about $50 shipped on Amazon. Don't know what the lumen rating was, don't really care to be honest. All I needed some lights to see my fish and be able to take better care of the tanks and get in there and kind of see what's going on. So these are a very slim, low profile LED light. Mounts pretty easy. So there's a little channel on top. You mount some clips where it's going and then the LED strip below. And these are linkable, so you can run one power cord to one of these, and then they actually tie together, so you can run a string of, I'm not sure how many they're rated for. I'm going to run strings of 4 probably together, and then I'll just use, excuse me, Wi-Fi timer to program these, set these when to turn on and off. Like I said, I've got a bunch of tanks down here, 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe 20 or so tanks that need lit, so these 4-foot bulbs are going to work great in my rack. And like I said, for 50 bucks, for 8 lights, if I happen to have any left over, which I may, depending on how I decide to mount these, I can always use them for room lighting or, potential tanks in the future or even in the garage. Easy enough, right? Especially for the price. So we're going to take a look at the racks, how we're going to mount these in, and then I'll show you how to mount them up, how to wire them, and then we're going to turn the lights on. First things first, opening up the box. Of course, we've got our 4-foot lights. Okay, and then like I said, they have the same plug on both ends. Again, they're linkable, so you can run a string of them together and put them all on one power supply. They are, I think these are rated for something like 32 watts, so low power consumption, keep those running costs down. So we got the light itself, and then also in the box, we find 8 of the power cords, and there's a connector, obviously a standard US wall plug, and then it's got a little power switch. Okay, and these are the same lights I ran on there before I went ahead and purchased a bunch of lights for the fish room. I wanted to test them out. They're working pretty good. I'm able to grow some low to medium light plants in there, so these should work just fine for me. Haven't had any problems with the 8 that I already run, so stuck with what worked. and ordered more for the rest of the fish room. And so you got the light, the power cord, and then these are, this is a 4-foot section. It's just a female to female. So these will link each light together, and 4 foot should be able to get you pretty far if you need to. Otherwise, you could cut it and splice it if you wanted a real short cable. What I'll probably end up doing is just kind of bundling it up real nice and zip tying it together to keep that extra out of the way. That way, without too much hassle, I have the option to stretch this bad boy out if I decide to move things around. And then the last thing in the box is some hardware again. You've got the clips in there and some screws, and tough to see. We'll get a better look at those when we start mounting them up. And so let's get started. Let's take a look at just where these things are going to go. All right, so in the fish room, as you guys know, I've got this double rack here set up. So on the bottom I've got a 75, 315s, which I love those tanks, by the way, a single 10 fit right on the end, 220 highs, and then this is more or less just storage right now. I'm going to put another 20 high up there, and then I'll use whatever space is left to keep food cultures. But as you can see, it's pretty dang dark. So pardon the tanks themselves, but what we're going to do is mount our lights up under here, out of the way. We'll mount them to the bottom of the shelf that's above it, and that'll keep it up out of the way so it doesn't get wet, and then we've got a lot of room to work down in here in the tanks. And as you can see, this is 4 feet between the beams, okay? So now this light is a little bit shorter than 4 feet, but it's not going to quite fit up inside. So what we'll do to get good coverage is we're going to mount it in here at an angle like so, and see what kind of spread that gives us. This is how I mounted the lights over on the acrylics, and it worked out well. I'm curious to see how it works out on a little bit larger setup with some more depth front to back. If that doesn't work, we can obviously pursue some other options, but we'll get it up there and see how things go. Now, as far as mounting these things go, it's nothing cosmic. Each strip comes with a little packet of hardware, which includes a couple of these little brackets and some fairly short screws to mount it. Now, these brackets themselves, we will simply screw into the bottom of the shelf above it, and then this will sit on there and clip in like so. Now, all this does seem fairly dummy proof. We're gonna mock this up in here like so, and just put a quick mark roughly where we think a bracket should go on this end, and then I'll do the same on the other end, which is off camera right now. Then once we have our points marked, now I'm going to take my fancy smancy cordless drill and just buzz that guy right up in there. Trying not to strip it too bad, and then I'll do the same on the other side as well. Now, with our little brackets mounted, simply slide each end up in there like so. Should give it a little click, maybe, and I think that'll work. Now we do have to run our connecting cord, since these are linkable lights. So I'll disconnect the one that's sitting up on top of there, remove the light, simply plug it in, she'll light back up. We'll test fit this bad boy in here, and voila, sits from one end all the way to the other, no problems. Now, this is one of many. We'll go ahead and repeat the process on the other lights. So now we've set up our lights here, 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 and here. Shoo, shoo, boom, boom, shoo, shoo. All right, awesome. So they're all linked together. They're all running back to one timer, and in a later video I'll show you how to set up a Casa Wi-Fi outlet to run all your lights off a simple app on your phone. Now, as you can see, we've got a little bit of wire to clean up. Fortunately, I'm pretty handy with zip ties, so let's do a little wire management and get this thing buttoned up. Alright, now as far as cable management goes, there's a couple different ways that I could attack this. Now, this is the cord that links this light to the light in the next bay over. Now, for right now, I think I'm simply going to use a standard zip tie, which you don't need these 10-inch zip ties. A simple 6 or 4-inch zip tie would probably do. But I'll go ahead and use this one for now because, well, quite frankly, this is what I've got handy. And all we'll do, pull up the slack, wrap it up, put the tab through the hole, so to speak, give her a cinch, and then snap my tie end. Now, for the most part, this will keep this pretty much well up out of the way. Now, I could get crafty and tuck this in here and hide my cables, and I may do that at a later point in time, which I think would probably be okay. But for the time being, this should work out all right for what I'm using it for. All right, now we zipped up the extra, more or less, service loop, or that tag end that was left loose, and you weren't quite able to see it, but I was able to secure it up here with a little sticky strip in between the stand, and I think that'll clean it up nicely. If we fall back out here a little bit, now we're looking at the top of the tanks. Other than a small little loop, pretty well out of the way. So I think that'll do it, and I'll go ahead and tidy up the rest of them real fast. All right, taking a step back to look at our handiwork. Things look fairly clean. We can look into the tanks easily. We can see into the tanks. Now, being a budget LED, it is a great option if you have to light a lot of tanks. And as you can see here, these are mostly breeder tanks, not running a lot of plants. So even though it doesn't throw a ton of light or much par, these will suffice just fine, particularly for what I paid for them. And if they last a year, for what I paid, I think that's okay. Now, going over the install real quick, like I said, down here we have a power strip with a timer, and then we ran a link over to one 4-foot fixture, a link over to another 4-foot fixture, and then we also ran from that timer down here to the bottom tank a 4-footer, and then a 4-footer over this 75 as well. Now that lights these 4 bays, if you will. We still have the tanks up there to light, which I will do the exact same thing for. And then as you can see over here, I'm going to do the same thing to those tanks. And at the end, it'll look a lot like this rack of acrylics. Or, wow, look at the hose. 2-foot lights, but the exact same principle. Run into a timer. And in the future, I'll make a video showing you how you can set up your LED lights for your entire fish room on a Wi-Fi timer to control everything from your phone. Alright guys, that's it. So we talked about how I'm going to light the vast majority of this fish room for about 50 bucks using very low wattage 4-foot linkable LED light strips that are, in the next video, going to get linked up and tied into a Casa Wi-Fi plug so that I control the timing, whether this is on or off, regardless of where I'm at, from my phone using a simple app. Now, all in all in this project, it's going to run me about 50 bucks to light 275s, 615s, some 10s, some 20s, all in all probably 20 tanks or more. Now, obviously I'm not going to grow fancy plants, but that's not the goal. This is a breeding fish room, whether I'm breeding guppies, Cryptoheros nanaluteus, some sweet pseudocrena labris down in the bottom 75 there, and for 50 bucks in lights and another 20 bucks for a Wi-Fi timer to control everything, 70 bucks to light 20 to 30 tanks of a small to medium size is quite a deal. And I showed you in this video that you don't need to have a lot of money to light a lot of tanks, nor does it take a lot of work or know-how. I did this with hand tools, basically. I used a cordless drill, but you could easily put in the small screws with a hand screwdriver, and it doesn't take any fancy know-how or carpentry skills. You don't have to be an electrician to make this happen and to make it happen safely. Now, like I said, the key point of this was to light a lot of tanks so that I can both see them to enjoy them as well as work in them on a budget. Now, for a budget light, how long will these last? Well, in that video up there, I show you that I use those 2-foot lights on the acrylic tanks, and I've had those without any problems for 3 years so far, without any issues at all, running 8 to 12 hours a day. They've done just fine. They grow basic low light plants over the tanks that they're in, and the height and size of those tanks will play a big factor. But for what I spent, I've definitely got my money's worth, and I would recommend them. Now, as you can see here, this is a budget fish room. I'll tally up all the expenses at some point in time and see exactly where we're at, but that's for a later video. I hope you found something useful and got some ideas on how to light your fish room or a large group of fish tanks that you may be keeping from this video. For more information and further videos, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching. This is Mike at All Things Fish. Have a wonderful day. We'll see ya.